Hey everyone, ready for another deep dive? Today we're tackling near-death experiences.
NDEs.
Yeah, NDEs. We're going to be looking at an interview with Dr. Raymond Moody,
Oh,
who
wow.
you might know from his book Life After Life.
Right.
So he's kind of a big name in this field.
Yeah, he's been researching this for decades.
Decades. And he's got some really interesting views on life after death.
Really interesting. And maybe,
And logic.
yeah.
And the nature of knowledge, it's really fascinating.
What's so fascinating about Dr. Moody is that he describes himself as a purist skeptic.
Really?
Yes. So
That's kind of surprising.
it is. You don't really expect that from someone who studies NDEs.
No, not at all.
You kind of expect him to be,
It's true, maybe
a
a
little more.
reliever.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But he's super cautious about jumping to any conclusions.
Wow.
And he brings this really rigorous analytical perspective to his work.
So how does that even work? Like, how do you approach something as mysterious and subjective as an NDE from a purely skeptical standpoint?
Well, Dr. Moody actually sees his skepticism as a strength.
Okay.
He thinks it makes him uniquely qualified to study these phenomena because he's not coming in with any preconceived notions.
Right.
He's really open to being surprised by the data.
I guess that makes sense. It's like having a scientist who doesn't believe in gravity study how things fall.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because he wasn't always focused on NDEs.
Oh.
He actually started his career as a forensic psychiatrist.
Whoa.
Yeah, in a maximum security facility, no less.
That's intense.
Yeah, so
What did he do there?
he worked with patients experiencing psychosis
Okay.
and delirium.
Wow.
And he noticed something really strange. The way they spoke, it often resembled intentional nonsense.
Like what? Give me an example.
He compares it to the writing of, like, Lewis Carroll.
Like Alice in Wonderland kind of stuff.
Yeah, exactly. With all those nonsensical rhymes and wordplay. It's like there's a logic to it.
But it's not traditional logic.
Right,
So
yeah.
what's the connection between that and NDEs?
Well, this is where things get really interesting. Dr. Moody believes that our traditional ways of thinking, our reliance on logic, can actually hinder us when it comes to understanding NDEs.
Okay, I'm listening. How so?
He argues that NDEs are inherently paradoxical.
Paradoxical.
They defy easy categorization as true or false because they deal with experiences that are beyond our normal understanding of reality.
Okay, that makes sense. But if logic isn't the answer, how do we even begin to wrap our heads around these experiences?
That's a great question. And to answer that, we need to delve into Dr. Moody's concept of the logic of nonsense.
The logic of nonsense. All right, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
So it all started with his observations of those patients in the maximum security facility.
Right, ones who were speaking in this almost nonsensical way.
Exactly.
And he saw a pattern there.
He did. And he started to wonder, what if there's actually a structure to this apparent nonsense?
Okay, so there's like a method to the madness.
Right. And that's what led him to develop this system, the logic of nonsense,
Yeah.
which he uses to analyze ideas that seem unintelligible.
So he's saying there's a way to make sense of the nonsensical.
In a way, yes. And he argues that this is crucial for understanding concepts like life after death.
Because those concepts are so far outside our normal ways of thinking.
Exactly. They challenge our very notion of what's real and what's possible.
Okay, I'm starting to see where this is going, but can you give me a concrete example of how this logic of nonsense works?
Sure. Dr. Moody often uses this anecdote about Abraham Lincoln to illustrate his point.
Oh, I love a good Lincoln story.
So imagine Lincoln asking someone, if you call a tail a leg, how many legs does a horse have?
Well, obviously it still has 4 legs.
Right. But Lincoln would say, no, calling a tail a leg doesn't make it one.
Uh-huh, good point.
So even though it's nonsensical,
It's a call a tail a leg.
right, it still makes you think
Yeah.
about what defines a leg.
It challenges your assumptions in a way that a straightforward definition might not.
Exactly.
So it's about using nonsense to stimulate thought. Okay, I'm starting to get it, but how does this apply to NDEs specifically?
Well, Dr. Moody argues that NDE accounts often take the form of travel narratives, even though experiencers claim it happened outside of time and space.
Travel narratives.
Yes, like a journey with a beginning, middle, and end.
So they're describing these experiences in a way that makes sense to our linear minds?
Exactly. Even though the experiences themselves might defy linear time and space.
So it's like they're trying to fit this vast, ineffable experience into a container that we can understand.
A container of language and narrative.
Right?
And this is where the logic of nonsense comes in. It helps us see how NDEs are forcing us to confront the limitations of our language and logic when describing profound, subjective experiences.
I'm starting to see how all this connects, but I have to ask, if logic has its limits, how can we possibly investigate something as elusive as an NDE?
That's where things get even more interesting. And it leads us to an encounter Dr. Moody had with another big name in NDE research, Dr. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross.
Oh, wow. Kubler-Ross. Now that's a name I recognize.
Yeah, she's a pioneer in her own right.
Absolutely. So what happened when these two titans of NDE research met?
Well, let's just say it wasn't your typical academic exchange. Kubler-Ross had a very different approach to NDEs, and she wasn't afraid to challenge Dr. Moody's skepticism.
I can imagine. She was known for being pretty outspoken.
This is getting good. I can't wait to hear what happened next.
Ugh.
Okay, so this clash of titans, Dr. Moody the skeptic and Dr. Kubler-Ross, I don't know, what would you even call her approach?
Well, she was definitely more of a believer, right? I mean, she really embraced the spiritual implications of NDEs.
Yeah, she saw them as evidence for the afterlife.
Right, and she was really frustrated by what she saw as Dr. Moody's reluctance to accept that.
So how did she challenge his skepticism?
She used this really powerful analogy. She said, imagine if a bunch of explorers came back from a new land.
Okay, I'm imagining.
And they all had these similar stories,
Yeah.
about the creatures they saw, the landscapes they encountered. Would we just dismiss their accounts as nonsense? That's a good point, especially if they were all independent of each other.
Exactly. And that's what she argued was happening with NDEs. There were just too many consistent accounts to ignore.
So the sheer volume of these experiences, all with these recurring themes and patterns, that kind of lends them more weight.
Exactly. It's like a weight of evidence, even if it's not scientific evidence in the traditional sense.
So did this encounter change Dr. Moody's mind?
Well, it definitely made him think. He even admits that he struggles to form firm opinions.
Really?
Yeah, he says it's kind of a personal quirk.
But isn't that a problem for a researcher?
He actually sees it as both a challenge and an asset.
Okay, I'm curious. How so?
He says it keeps him open to new ideas and prevents him from getting too attached to any one theory.
So it keeps that skepticism alive.
Exactly. It's like he's always walking this tightrope between belief and doubt.
Fascinating. But if traditional science can't quite capture these experiences, how do we move forward?
Well, Dr. Moody is calling for a new way of thinking. He draws this really interesting parallel to Galileo.
Galileo, the guy who said the Earth revolves around the sun.
Yes. Back then, that idea seemed like utter nonsense. I mean, it defied everything people knew to be true.
It's funny how what seems like nonsense in one era can become common knowledge in another.
Exactly. And Dr. Moody believes something similar could be happening with NDEs. They challenge our current understanding of consciousness and reality so profoundly that they seem illogical, impossible even.
So we need a new framework, a new lens through which to view these experiences.
Right. Maybe our current tools just aren't adequate for the job.
Okay, I'm on board with that. But what would this new way of thinking actually look like? Give me some specifics.
Well, Dr. Moody doesn't give us a step-by-step guide or anything, but he does emphasize the importance of not throwing out logic altogether.
So it's not about embracing irrationality.
No, it's about finding a balance, recognizing the power of logic, but also its limitations.
It's like expanding our definition of what's rational.
Exactly. And it's interesting because Dr. Moody himself embodies this balance. He's a skeptic who studies NDEs, a man of science who talks about a relationship with God. It's pretty paradoxical, isn't it?
It is. So it's not just an intellectual exercise. It's about embodying that balance in our own lives. That's a big ask.
It is. And I think that's why he focuses so much on the idea of relationships.
Relationships, how do those fit in?
Well, he doesn't just talk about NDEs in a detached, analytical way. He talks about having a relationship with them, with the people who's had them, with the mystery itself. Even his approach to spirituality is relational. He doesn't believe in God in the traditional sense, but rather describes having a relationship with God.
Wow. Okay, my brain is officially doing somersaults. That's a lot to unpack. But it makes me wonder, if traditional logic isn't always the answer, what other tools can we use to explore these mysteries? What else is in our toolkit?
Well, Dr. Moody's actually offering some very concrete tools in his online course, A New Way of Thinking. He says it goes beyond just presenting information about NDEs. It's designed to help people rewire their thinking.
Rewire their thinking? That sounds intense.
It is. He gives them new tools for grappling with those big questions that have always eluded traditional logic.
It's like a mental workout, but for your worldview.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like he's saying, hey, if you're willing to put in the work, you can actually change the way you think.
This is all really fascinating, but the more we talk about this, the more I keep bumping up against the limits of language. If even the people who have had these NDEs struggle to put them into words, how can we who haven't even begin to grasp them?
Right. It's like trying to describe the taste of chocolate to someone who's never had it.
Exactly. They might understand the concept, but they'll never truly get it until they experience it for themselves.
And maybe that's the point. Maybe these experiences are meant to be felt, not just understood intellectually. Maybe that's where the real transformation lies.
Okay, I'm feeling a little more grounded now, but this brings up another question for me. Is this new way of thinking only relevant to big existential questions about life after death? Or can it be applied to everyday life too?
That is the million-dollar question, isn't it? And it's a question that takes us to the heart of what Dr. Moody is trying to achieve.
Yeah.
It's not just about thinking differently. It's about living differently.
So we've been talking about this new way of thinking and how it might apply to NDEs, but I'm really curious, how does this translate to everyday life? Is this just some, heady philosophical concept, or can we actually use this to, navigate the world around us?
I think that's what's so exciting about Dr. Moody's work.
Yeah.
It's not just about these big abstract ideas.
Right.
It's about how we live our lives.
Yeah.
He's really suggesting that this new way of thinking can help us in practical ways.
Okay, I like that. I like practical.
Right.
So how...
Well, think about it. How often do we get stuck in our own limited perspectives?
Oh, all the time.
Right. Clinging to what we think we know.
Yeah. Especially, online.
Oh, absolutely.
When you're arguing with someone about something,
Yeah.
you're just like, but I'm right.
You're so sure you're right.
Yeah, and they're like, no, I'm right.
Exactly.
And it's like, how do we even...
And it's like, neither of you are really listening to each other.
Yeah.
You're just stuck in your own little echo chambers.
Yeah. It's like, I think this is true, therefore it is true.
Right. And that's where the logic of nonsense can be so powerful. It encourages us to loosen our grip on those rigid ideas and be open to possibilities that might seem counterintuitive or even absurd at first.
So, instead of just shutting down when someone says something I disagree with, I should, try to see where they're coming from.
Exactly. Even if it seems totally illogical to you at first.
Yeah, okay. So it's about, cultivating empathy.
Yeah. Empathy and understanding.
Thinking when we encounter ideas that challenge our own.
Right. Because sometimes those challenges can lead to the most growth.
So it's kind of like we're being asked to, embrace a playful curiosity.
I love that.
Approach life with a sense of wonder.
Yes.
And a willingness to be surprised.
And who knows what incredible insights or breakthroughs might emerge when we loosen our grip on certainty and embrace the unexpected.
Yeah. That makes me think about all those times when I've been, so sure of something, and then something happens that completely changes my mind.
And you're like, whoa, I was so wrong.
Yeah. And it's like, maybe being wrong is actually a good thing.
It can be, because it means you're learning and growing.
Yeah. Okay, this is really making me rethink things.
That's the power of Dr. Moody's work. It really challenges us to step outside our comfort zones.
It does. And it's funny. We started this deep dive talking about NDEs.
Right.
But the insights we've uncovered have implications for so much more.
It's amazing, isn't it? How these big philosophical ideas can actually help us navigate the complexities of our daily lives.
Totally.
It's about being more flexible in our thinking, more willing to question our assumptions, and more open to different perspectives. I love that. It's like we're being given permission to, not know everything.
Yes, to embrace the mystery.
And to be okay with that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because sometimes the most beautiful discoveries are made when we let go of our need for certainty.
That's a great takeaway. So for all of you listening out there, here's a final thought to chew on. What if you approached your life with a little more of that logic of nonsense? What if you allowed yourself to question everything you think you know, to be open to new ideas, even if they seem a little crazy at first? What might you discover about yourself, about the world, about the nature of reality itself? Keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.